All right, and so welcome to today's panel discussion entitled Black Women's Utilization of Cross-Race and Cross-Gender Mentorship. We are so excited to have each and every one of you here. So before we dive into our discussion for today and our purpose, I definitely want to allow an opportunity for our two panelists to introduce themselves, followed by myself as well.
All right, so I'm Dr. Brooks, and I'm representing the University of Arizona Global, and I currently work at NASA Johnson Space Center.
Welcome.
And good morning, ladies. My name is Dr. Cherise Johnson, and I am adjunct faculty at San Jacinto College in Houston, Texas.
Awesome. And I'll serve as your facilitator today. I'm Dr. Jerica Nickerson, and I currently work at Lone Star College in Houston, Texas. So it's such an exciting opportunity to collaborate and connect with you all on today on what I deem a very important subject, such as Black women's advancement in leadership, but also their utilization of cross-race and cross-gender mentorship. So just some background information as far as what has gotten us to this point today. I want to share a brief abstract that states that literature has suggested that mentorship is one of the most crucial and influential components for career advancement. However, Black women in higher education are faced with a difficult task of selecting a mentor based on similar characteristics, which leads Black women who are seeking mentoring opportunities to select a mentor of a different race or gender. The panel will encourage individuals faced with the difficulty of identifying and selecting a mentor based on the characteristics of same race and same gender to seek out mentors who possess other essential qualities to aid with their career and leadership development and advancement. So ladies, I'll dive right into the first question. So I do have a few guided questions here that we'll discuss in-depthly, and hopefully we can answer some questions for those who will be tuning in later watching this. So first and foremost, what influenced your cross-race or cross-gender mentoring relationship?
Well, I'll go first. I think for me, my experience with mentorship, it was definitely cross race as well as cross gender. And the reason being would just be reiterating what you stated in the abstract, that there being limited amount of Black women in leadership positions. So I did have to go outside of that. So my experience was just to improve professionally as well as to build leadership skills. And I already knew that that individual was a dean of a department, and it was something that I was aspiring to do. And so I just felt like it would be a good fit. And it was kind of like the only available opportunity.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Brooks.
And so for me, I must admit that as far as like exploring it on my own, not so much. Mine was really through a formal mentorship program. Okay. So my ability to go, what influenced me to explore that is actually was appointed. So that was the heavily influence on that. So the organization I was working for, they had a mentorship program for faculty. And so I just, they appointed me someone that would mentor me. And then the person that appointed, it just happened to fall into the category of cross race, cross gender.
Good. And I'm going to echo that as well, because I too originally engaged in a cross gender mentoring relationship based on it being a formal assigned relationship, and it was interesting. And so just for clarity, what we're discussing here today is just pretty much utilization of a mentor of someone other than a Black woman. And so whether that's a Black male, a Hispanic male, white female, Hispanic female, just anyone other than a Black female, in which we've utilized in a mentoring relationship. So I want to know for you first, Dr. Brooks, was it or is it even beneficial to engage in a cross-race and cross-gender mentoring relationship? And explain that a little, especially with yours being such a formal process. More, and I think of formal, I will use the term of saying it was forced. You didn't have an option to select. So is it beneficial to engage in those type of cross-race, cross-gender mentoring relationships?
In my opinion, yes, it is beneficial because it gives you more insight on how other individuals look at things. I think the term that I was looking at was it improves your emotional intelligence on how to deal with different people from different cultures. And I will say that it's beneficial. And if you compare it to like seeking or having a relationship with someone that is the same gender, same race, I still feel like you're going to benefit from both, but it's just at a slower pace. So overall, yes, it is beneficial. And this is just from my experience, it's beneficial. It helped me understand, like, just improve me professional wise, open me up to different networking opportunities where I will meet individuals that are part of different organizations or different communities, that I don't think I would necessarily meet them if I were paired up with someone of the same race or the same gender. So it really just, broadened my opportunity to build those relationships with individuals that are totally different than I am.
Okay. What about you, Dr. Johnson?
Well, since mine was slightly different from the experiences of the two of you, mine was just because I'm a lifelong learner. I'm always interested in learning different things and learning about different people. I sought out mine, and I think it was an experience for the both of us. And I think it's very beneficial. It's beneficial personally, as well as professionally. And I think for both parties, because with mine, it was a white male. So he was able to learn more about a Black woman seeking leadership to see where there are biases, where there are gaps. And then personally, as Dr. Brooks spoke on, it improves the emotional intelligence, because then you have to remove certain biases, certain fears, certain embedded environment perspectives, and you're having to be open-minded, both as a white male as well as a Black woman. So personally, the cliche of growing or developing thick skin is something that I did gain from it. As well as professionally being able to be encouraged and then also correct some gaps, as well as developing more leadership skills.
I totally agree. Oh, go ahead, Dr. Brooks.
Now, I wanted to add to that. I didn't mean to jump in, but I wanted to add to that too, because when you asked the first question and we talked about just those cross race and gender relationships or mentorship, I actually spoke and said that mine was forced. But I've been in a situation where it was appointed, and then a situation where it was actually organic. And if I had to choose which one was more beneficial, the organic mentorship to me was more beneficial than the appointed, only because well, in my opinion, in my experience, the appointed brought more challenges than the organic. The organic, it was more like the mentor actually wanted to be there, they wanted to help, but then in the appointed situation, the mentor would be like, well, I'm only doing this because this is a requirement, this is a demand, and so forth and so on.
Okay. I think organic relationships in general, as we think about the wonderful world of communication, they always seem to serve us best when things happen organically. I think of arranged marriages in the sense where more times than not, arranged marriages do not last long. Arranged friendships and relationships do not last long. But however, when you have an opportunity to just organically go with the flow and meet people and engage with them, the connection, it seems to take place at a more beneficial rate. And so, Dr. Brooks, I heard you say earlier when answering about whether it influences your career, you slightly said that it happens, but it happens at a slower pace. So when you talk about a slower pace because it's forced, can you elaborate on that just a little bit? And then also, did you experience any challenges in your cross race or cross gender, whether it was the organic one or even the more formal pairing type?
Well, and so when I say slower pace, when I was saying it, I was thinking about just the challenges. What I've experienced is I run into more challenges when it is cross race. I mean, well, not cross race, but when it's appointed versus organic, because it's you make a choice when it's organic, but then appointment, that's just where they place you in that situation. And when it comes to the cross race, cross gender, when you run into an individual that is different from you, of course they're going to do things different. And so because we don't have that middle ground and we don't have a lot of elements that we find or that are common or characteristics that are common, the choices or the decisions that they make, I might not totally agree with them, and I might be slow to be receptive to them. So that causes a interference in the growth in the mentorship or building the relationship. And so because of that, you have to go out and work out those kinks and really address those concerns. And so that's what I mean by slower pace, because it could be some pushback or drawback to it. And then I just overall, like I said, the characteristics between the two individuals that are in that mentor-mentee relationship, that could really cause once again, like a barrier and prevent the individuals from building that relationship. So I feel like overall, I will benefit from that cross-gender, cross-race relationship or mentorship, but the things that I will, like the benefits that I receive from it, I feel like I won't really gain a lot of ground in that sense versus if I was with someone that was same race, same gender.
Okay. Dr. Johnson, what about you? Any challenges that you've experienced in the cross race or cross gender mentoring relationship?
I think there's a barrier, again, with it being both cross race as well as cross gender. The understanding is not always there. There's not the, I don't want to say softness, but sometimes when dealing with males, they're more aggressive, they're more straightforward. Whereas women, sometimes in some roles, we're able to kind of smooth things over. So yes, we want guided feedback, we want constructive criticism, but when communicating with another woman or Black woman, it does come across, as Dr. Brooks said, where you could receive it more. You get a better reception from it. So I think it was just kind of a pushback, trying to decide if the constructive feedback or if the guided feedback was sincere, and if it was necessary. And it also made me think, well, if I were a white male, would I still be hearing these same challenges or experiencing these challenges? So it was a lot of, it was like a tug of war, trying to decide or decipher what I should do and how I should do it. And then also thinking about, even though this is a mentorship, will this affect my evaluation, my overall performance? Will I still be able to get courses at this institution because this person is a supervisor? So it just brought about a whole different emotional roller coaster in deciding to be sincere, to be open, to be honest. So yeah, those were definitely some challenges.
So it's a few comments I want to make based on what you guys have said. For one, I want to share an experience with a white male who served as a mentor for me. And there was some pushback because he just didn't understand some of the experiences that I wanted for us to address or communicate about, and vice versa. I can't understand for the most part what it is like to be a white male. And so he made a very profound statement at one point. We were talking and he said, well, you know what, Jerica? Honestly, I've never had a mentor. I'm white and I'm male. Why do I need one? And in the moment, I was taken aback because we were literally discussing how mentorship is such a crucial component, especially for minorities, especially for Black women, especially for those who pretty much did not receive a life or was born into a life of just inheriting certain resources, not necessarily financial resources, but something as simple as a certain skin tone or growing up in a certain area. And so literally we ended the conversation. I didn't think to bring it back up. It was just such a profound statement because I'm like, wow, you know, he really feels that way, which I can't do nothing but respect that. But in retrospect, I felt as though, how could you say that to me? You know, like, oh, I didn't need one. I'm white and I'm male. But after I pondered on it a little bit, I got it. I said, you know, he's absolutely right. He didn't need one. He doesn't need one. He's gotten to this level, not just because he is white and male. I'm sure because he's very intelligent. He's a great leader. You know, there are other aspects to him. However, for us, even for me, I can speak for myself. I know for a fact I can't get to a next level solely by myself. Mm-hmm. I need someone to help me. And it's not necessarily to give me the job or to make sure I climb the ladder, but just that guidance. Mm-hmm. Because maneuvering the workplace, the professional workplace, is totally different for a woman in general. Yes. Which takes me to the other point that you were making, how it may be a little easier just having a female mentor. Of course, a Black female mentor, because Black women to Black women, we tend to be able to relate on a lot of things, but just having a woman, a female in general, because of the multiple roles as females we play. You know, we're just not professionals. We're just not employees. Some of us are mothers. We're wives. We're partners. We're a daughter. We're sisters. We're friends. We have all of these multiple roles where, to a certain extent, society has only placed the responsibility of being provider on male, where in these days and time, females are also provider, nurturer, nurse, teacher, police officer, doctor, lawyer. It's just so many different roles. And so when you do have that female mentor, it does make it a little less challenging to be able to discuss and address some of the issues that you're facing with, because mentoring, for me personally, mentoring should not only be on a professional level as far as we only talk about work. Because if you're truly going to mentor me, if you're truly going to guide me, you need to know more about me holistically and who I am, my self-concept and what I represent. And so although the relationship will most likely just start off strictly talking about work, as you discussed, that dual role, a supervisor that's also serving as a mentor. However, we have to safely self-disclose, but eventually get to a point where I can share with you that I'm having a bad day because of something that happened at home. I can share with you how I was treated because I'm a Black woman, where we can have these hard discussions where you are serving me holistically and not just professionally. So as we think about some of these challenges, how did it impact the relationship moving forward? As I think about my white male mentoring relationship, it didn't have much of an impact. It did for a brief moment because I just was shocked that he made that statement. But honestly, it opened my mind and gave me a deeper perception of who he is and how he truly cannot relate to my experiences. So yes, even though it was an organic relationship, it did move a little bit slower because we had to address some race issues amongst one another and some race challenges and experiences so that we could truly get to know one another. So what kind of impact did some of those challenges that you all have mentioned have on the relationship?
Well, I'll go. Like you mentioned about the self-disclosure. From some of the comments, from some of the feedback, there is a resistance. So for me, I'm only willing to disclose so much. Mm-hmm. So much so that I can just reflect on when I was pregnant. I did not share that with him at all. He came in to just check in, pop in on a class, and then he was like, whoa. And I was almost at the end of the road because I just did not know, would that stop me from having courses? Would I be limited? Would they think because I am a woman getting ready to have a child that I wouldn't be able to complete my job successfully? Would they want to check in more frequently to make sure that I was doing the right thing or that I was present and not slacking? So it did just alter the self-disclosure. So all things good, I didn't have any problem with sharing or having conversations, but anything on the personal level, it just didn't feel comfortable. I just wasn't too sure about it. So professionally, totally fine. Any issues with students or other colleagues, I'm able to chit chat. And even like you guys mentioned about the mentorship opportunity within the workplace, for us on that particular campus, there are no mentorships. But I've taken it upon myself to mentor other people that are just coming in because I saw the importance of it. So through the relationship and I saw how that unfolded, then it just motivated me to do a little bit more, if that makes sense.
No, it does.
And so with me, the impact that the cross race and gender mentorship has had on me is just pretty much enlightened me, giving me a better understanding that if I do interact with individuals that are different than me, have different characteristics or beliefs and so forth and so on, these are some of the ways that you should act accordingly to really carry on that professionalism. Or it gives me more insight to understand why the organization or the entity or the people within the entity move the way that they move and why decisions are made the way they are. So it just enlightened me and just gives me a better understanding, because it's hard to really do things or make or understand or really keep pushing the mission forward if you don't understand why you're doing it. So I feel like when getting into those relationships, it impacts me as far as my intellect and gives me a better understanding of why things are done the way they're done. And for me personally, when I get that why, when that why is filled in, then it makes me more productive within the workplace. I'm like, okay, even though I don't understand it, even though I don't like it, I'm doing this why, because this is the way that it's set. This is how it's set in the organization. And this is why they're making these decisions.
So it just gave you a little bit more insight into internal politics that all organizations go through.
Definitely.
So as we think about cross-race, cross-gender mentoring, and even same race, same gender mentoring, how would you compare the two?
Definitely, in my opinion, it would just be night and day. Going into the situation with the same race, same gender, you feel more comfortable because there's, like I said, there's a middle ground between you and the other person. You might go through the process of disclosing more information versus, and this is one of the things that I've run into when I was in the mentorship where it was cross race, cross gender. I had an experience where my mentor, what the things that I was trying to accomplish and the goals that I was trying to achieve, that he didn't really see that. And so because he didn't really see that and understand, his resources, or he was limited as an individual. And so because of that, I felt neglected in that process, and I really just didn't get far with it. But I feel like if I had been with someone that really understand me and understand the struggles that I encounter every day and why I'm doing the things that I'm trying to do and accomplish, I feel like, with that individual, they'll make themselves more available because they know what I'm up against. And so that's what I mean by night and day and just totally different.
Okay, Dr. Johnson, would you like to share?
Yes, I definitely echo the sentiments of Dr. Brooks. I feel like they are a night and day experience. And even with the smallest experience that I've had with same race, same gender mentor, we end up being able to help one another. So there were some things whereas she was an executive leader, She was no longer in the classroom. So I was able to share classroom experiences. And then it left from being a mentorship for us just being able to network, collaborate, and work together.
Mhm.
Whereas with the opposite mentorship experience, it was just like whatever I said, I was still young. I didn't have the leadership experience. So it was, again, that tug of war. Like, it was just, he was always right, and this is the way it's done. Not much room for innovative practices or changing, just being traditional and stuck into that same mindset, not wanting to, wiggle or being any. But every time he came into my classroom, he was just amazed at how my students were engaged. There was a rapport with myself and the students, and he had never seen something like that from a Black woman. And my class was a nighttime class. So they were up moving, grooving, we're laughing, enjoying one another, but he still didn't want to come all the way over to say, this is right, this is good. Well, there could be this, or you could do that. And so it was kind of, just darn if I do, darn if I don't kind of deal.
So you guys, you have my wheels spinning here. I'm going to dive here momentarily into a deeper conversation here. And as we continue to discuss cross race and cross gender, but also the comparison of a same race, same gender. So in my experience, my white counterparts have been more connected and more resourceful for me as a professional, as an individual, than those of the same race and or same gender. However, I have been able to relate more to, of course, a Black female mentor on different aspects and the various roles that we play. But I also quickly learned that there is a streak of competitiveness that comes with a same race, same gender mentoring relationship, such as a Black female mentoring a Black female, because it's the notion that it's only room for one. And since I have arrived and since I'm here, I can't, or I'm not willing, I'll say that, I'm not willing to really help you progress, because then if you progress and you outshine me, you take my spot or you replace me. And so how do we combat the misconceptions around there's only room for one at the table? How do we take what we've learned, even from the cross race, cross gender mentoring relationships, and make the same race, same gender relationships just as beneficial, just as resourceful, just as connected as we do the others?
I'm thinking that what we're doing now, continuing to express our feelings, continuing to participate in forums and on panels to share information like that. And then sometimes I haven't experienced that at the collegiate level, but at the district level, I've experienced that where not too many Black women want to put you on or give you pointers or things of that nature. But that's when I say you kind of just have to create a lane for yourself. And so then that's when they'll be able to see, oh, this person wasn't out to get me at all. But I'm not sure why that mentality is there, that it's only room for just one, because I think that we know that we're educated, we're beautiful, we can do all of these things, but at the end of the day, we're transparent with one another and we're willing to share whatever information we come across. So I just can't even fathom, a personality or a spirit like that, because if I know something, I'm sharing it with everybody. It's not that kind of limited relationship or one-sided relationship for me.
Right.
And I would just say, like, we could change the narrative, continue to have that open communication. And I've seen it work for us because we're able to help each other, and it's not a competitive spirit amongst us. And we basically change taking what we have going on and turn it into a community of practice. So whatever you're strong in and whatever I'm strong in, we're actually collaborating and exchanging that information. And so I feel like conversations like that need to happen more often. And I don't think they happen as much at the collegiate level, you know, within the politicking and everything. So I feel like having those conversations and being open and being respectful, and it's a lot of, you know, when you go into communication, we talk about a lot of unspoken rules. I feel like with that, we have to really pay attention to those unspoken rules, which is like, you know, if there's something that you want to achieve and obtain, talk to that individual that is mentoring them. Let them know what your plans are, what you plan to do, and how they can help you and how they fit into those plans, and you stick with them and you keep that open communication, then that would help eliminate that whole notion of someone wants to take my spot and so forth and so on. And speaking of that, I want to piggyback on what you said, Dr. Nickerson, about how your white counterparts are more resourceful. And so when, like before you were talking and when Dr. Johnson was talking, I was thinking about it, and I started to really just clarify when I meant like night and day. And I agree with what you're saying, Dr. Nickerson, as far as like when it comes to that mentoring relationship with someone that is of the same gender, same race, it's more feasible. But then when it comes to dealing with someone that is different, I am introduced to those resources. I get a better opportunity to get introduced to those better resources. And like I mentioned earlier before, I get to meet individuals that I never thought that I would have met if I was paired with someone that looked just like me.
Right. And research actually presents that information that when you expand your mentoring relationships, when you actually engage with someone of a different race, of a different gender than you should be, if the mentoring relationship is effective, you should be exposed to their networks and their connections, which helps you build your circle. And even in we talking about circle, I started on a panel not too long ago, and someone made another very profound statement that your circle should be different from your friends.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Your circle should be very small because you can help me professionally. You're my network. But your friends, that's who you hang out with. That's when you have girl talking, girl time. And so often, even when those relationships, those mentoring relationships tend to intersect into that whole holistic view and getting to know one another, we still have to be able to create boundaries on what we're willing and not willing to share. So even going back to my statement earlier, yes, you do want to be able to engage with your mentor on personal as well as professional topics and conversations. However, we also have to know when to disclose and what to disclose, because as a communication theory, Johari's window states, it's for sales. It's for sales. And so we have to determine, and we have to be able to control those four cells, especially the unknown cell. And that's the more crucial one. And so we definitely want to make sure that we are controlling, I'll say, the narrative in our personal lives as well as our professional lives. So as we think of these unique mentoring relationships of cross race and cross gender, what are some common misconceptions that people have about them, and how can we combat these misconceptions and even communicate more effectively?
I think one of the most common is that the mentor has to be older because they are more wiser, they have more experience, and I don't necessarily believe that's always true, because different life experiences, personal, professional, career paths, they bring about different changes. So I don't think that the person always has to be older, because everybody still has something to share. So for me, that's normally what I see. The mentor always has to be the older person. Just because they're older, that means they know a little bit more. They may be wiser.
One of the ones I know is that it's very risky to have the cross-gender mentorship. And so now, and I'm just to go there because we in a different society. A lot of women are not following holding the whole feminine gender role. I mean, everybody has different sexual preference. We have a lot of different things going on. So just naturally assuming that, you know, pairing a woman up with a male, that's risky, and you could possibly get it could be a case because the male disrespected the woman. No, I just feel like that's totally different, because not every male likes a woman, not every woman likes a male. And you know, it's just the way the society is set up now, it's so different. So having that misconception about you just can't put a male and a woman together as far as mentorship, I think that's all wrong. I think now the way women are more independent women, we do a lot of things that the male do. We're breadwinners now. So pairing a woman up with a male, that could absolutely be something that is helpful. I mean, that could help the woman understand what the male deals with as far as being a man, and how society puts this man on a certain pedestal and they have to do certain things. But then also let the male understand, like, hey, as a woman, they put us in this box, but we can operate outside the box. And so that's a, you know, misconception that I absolutely see all the time.
Dr. Brooks, I agree. First of all, I agree with both of you all, Dr. Johnson and Brooks. And Dr. Brooks, you actually echo a statement. It reminds me of a book, The Elements of Mentoring. I think it's by last name Ridley, but The Elements of Mentoring. And that author made a very profound statement as saying, how do we change the trajectory of mentorship and what it should look like? And the statement said something around, we have to get women out of quarantine. And so, of course, thinking about the COVID-19 pandemic, this is an older book. It was written way before COVID-19. However, when I read it during our times right now, I was like, oh, wow, you know, that's really profound. And what the authors were saying is just, as men, because he's a male author, we have to get women out of the quarantine of being in a shell where we're not willing to mentor them simply because we're afraid of the sexual attraction. We're afraid of the rumors and the narratives that may arise. And they're also afraid of the whole notion that if it's a dual role, such as a supervisor and a mentee / employee, that if that female is to advance, oh, there must have been some sexual favors going on, that quid pro, oh Lord, I just had a brain fart.
Quid pro quo, there you go.
Yes, I was about to say quid pro ho. But it's that whole notion of just afraid of the tension that naturally, if you're male and female working close together, you possibly can create some type of sexual attraction in relationship. And I think that's a huge misconception. And it is going to take, for the most part, males taking a stance against that misconception and saying, no, it's something about this woman, this female, she possesses certain qualities, characteristics that makes her a highly sought after candidate or professional. Now, granted, the woman, the female, she can't help it if she's attractive, beautiful, sexy, for Black women, curvy and all things, and her hair and makeup, and she's just a kept woman. That has nothing to do, that's just her. But it's the notion of other women being threatened by that type of appearance and a sense of jealousy that would arise. And so I totally agree. And even with you, Dr. Johnson, about the mentor needs to be older, because honestly, an effective mentoring relationship should be reciprocal. Where at some point, although you're the mentor, you're also serving as the mentee because you're learning from that individual, and vice versa. If you are in a mentoring relationship where the mentor is the only one guiding you, and you're not able to guide them, whether it's to discuss those hard conversations centered around race, centered around gender, centered around various experiences that each of you have had, that's not an effective relationship, because at the end of the day, it should be reciprocal where you're both learning from one another. Think of it as the communication process. Communication should not be one way.
Transactional.
It should be transactional, where it's constantly sending, receiving, responding, listening. That's how we have to think of the mentoring relationship as well.
Another thing to add, Dr. Nickerson, would be that the mentorship should end once the goal is achieved. That's also a misconception, because just because you've achieved one goal doesn't mean that the relationship should end, because we should always be growing, progressing, and learning. So just because you got one job or got one thing accomplished and done, that should not stop the mentorship. At least I don't believe so.
Right. And eventually it could possibly stop the mentoring component, but hopefully it transcends into a friendship.
Right.
Because even starting early with mentoring relationships, there's the notion that, okay, you have to meet bi-weekly, you have to meet monthly, you want to keep in contact. And then as the relationship progresses, you may find yourself only communicating with that person once every other month or so. But it doesn't mean that that relationship is ineffective. It's because you are taking the tools and they're allowing you time to apply it, or you're allowing yourself some time to apply it. But I agree, even if you have reached the goal or accomplished whatever task you set yourself out to achieve by utilizing this person as a mentor, just because you've reached that threshold doesn't mean that relationship should end or stop. Because as humans, as individuals, we should not ever stop evolving. We should not ever stop growing. And so I totally agree that we do need to identify or possibly have or know when to say goodbye, whatever that looks like. But just because a certain task has been reached doesn't mean you have to automatically dispose that person. But the coming apart, that is something that I've been looking more into as well, as far as when do you end the mentoring relationship? But it talks more so about detrimental experiences, maybe where, especially in a dual role, that supervisor / mentor did not take up for you, did not support you. They do not have your best interest at hand. They actually are manipulating the relationship to hold you down instead of building you up. Those are instances where, okay, what's my exit plan? How do I get out of this? Because at the end of the day, you're still going to be my supervisor. However, I don't want for the relationship to continue as a mentor-mentee type thing. And so I need to strategically identify our separation plan, but more so respectfully. And I think that's also just a general misconception about Black women. They talk about the angry Black woman syndrome. And it makes me think of more recently here during the election time, when our current Madam Vice President Kamala Harris was debating her opponent. And social media and the media, you know, they took those still shots and they really focused on how she was looking at him and her tone. And because she was saying, I'm speaking, Mr. Vice President, like, they want us, and I'm saying they, in general, it could be Black, white, brown, yellow, purple. They want for Black women to be so angry. And most of the times it's not because we're angry. Some of us just have that command personality or that no nonsense, or even at the end of the day, you're going to respect me.
Yeah, we're authoritative. Yeah.
Yeah. And they can't, and some people, I'm saying they, and I'm using that very loosely, but some people cannot handle some non-negotiables that some Black women have. Even recently this morning, I had a friend send me a viral video of a white male commissioner failing to address a Black woman by her salutation of doctor. And it was a Zoom call like this, and his thing was just like, but your name just says whatever her first and last name was, and she was saying, please call me Dr. Rosario or something like that. And he was like, no, Carrie Rosario. He just refused to say it. And so sometimes that threat is there unintentionally simply because of our skin tone. And we really, truly need to get away from that.
Agreed.
And I think, like we say, having these type of conversations, sharing our experiences, knowledge is power. And for the most part, many people are just not informed and don't realize how their everyday conversations or statements or stances, how they impact others, especially women and women of color.
Right.
And I want to just make comment about just the cross-race, cross-gender mentorship. You know, I would like to see, and this is just from my experience, because everybody has different experience, to see the individual that is, I'm going to be open to it, because I really want to know, you know, I really want to get that promotion or get it, improve my knowledge or professionalism. But, you know, sometimes you have situations where the mentor is not really open to, you know, receptive or open to actually mentor, like you just said. And so that could be very detrimental and harmful to someone that's really working hard to get to the next level. And so that kind of makes me loop around to why we are authoritative at the beginning anyways, and we're, you know, zero tolerance, because, you know, I'm sure a lot of Black women have experienced things like that, especially in the professional world where it's not really many of us doing the things that we're doing.
Right. That experience of being disrespected, it will lead one to have a zero tolerance
Definitely
attitude. And again, that's anyone. If you know your place, if you know your importance, if you know what you bring to the table and how you're an asset, and you're still not being respected, respect is a huge value. And
right.
we all desire it. We all deserve it. And when you're not receiving it, then of course it will lead you to some what are considered angry Black woman type actions, when they're just really my non-negotiables,
Right.
and my respect boundaries that you have to rise to. So I really appreciate that conversation in that segment there. And so we're wrapping up here momentarily. And I know earlier you all kind of both touched on formal or assigned mentoring relationships. And so as you're thinking about your various organizations where you currently work or have worked in the past, did they formalize or force some type of mentoring component in maybe a committee or organization or program that you were participating in? And if so, do you remember a specific experience where you wish your organization completed the pairing process differently?
Well, for me and my organization currently, I definitely wish that they would have completed it differently. They, you know, they just paired me up with, it was cross race, but the same gender, and they paired me up with someone, and they hadn't even been working in the organization not too much longer before I got there.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess they just felt that this person could mentor me in some particular aspect. But then when we sat down and had a conversation, I found out that I was actually more experienced than she was. And so I was just like, how can I really move forward and learn from this? But I mean, I was still open and receptive, but I feel like, you know, I feel like the organizations need to be more intentional about how they really pair the individuals up with the mentorship program. Look at their history, look at where they're coming from, look at the department that they're working in. If you want to mentor them with someone in a different department, that is fine, but look and see where they can meet, and there's a middle ground between both of their positions. Those are some of the things that I would like them to see. And in my organization, there was not a committee. It was just two people that actually was like, okay, you're going to be mentored and paired up with that person. And I feel like that's more harmful than it is helpful, especially for the organization. It's a barrier and it's an interference to the productivity. So I would like to see organization, and especially my organization, be more intentional about what they do.
Okay.
And as I stated, my current organization, they do not have a mentorship program, or if they do, it's not something readily available to whereas everyone involved knows about it. So I actually would like to see that. And I think that it's helpful for people that are new to the organization, even if they've been at other organizations. Each institution or entity does things differently. So just to have that program set up so that everybody can be on the same page and on one accord to be successful for whatever the mission and vision of the institution is. So prior to you guys mentioning the mentorship program, I hadn't even thought about it. And then I started to think like, wow, I've been here for quite some time and have never heard of any available mentorships in any regard. That's why I kind of sought out my own mentorship, because it was not anything readily available. And even still, from my experiences, just unconsciously, I have taken a few people under my wing to help them through the process, but it's nothing that's formalized or anything like that.
And when Dr. Johnson said about the mentorship, like people that are new to the organization, most organizations, when you bring someone on new or you onboard someone new, they have like an onboarding, a welcoming packet and everything. But a lot of the organizations that I've been a part of have matched an individual up with mentorship based on the fact that they're new to the organization, and not necessarily based on this is the path that you want to go. This is how you want to grow. Let me put you with this person because they've actually been where you are. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I would like to see more of. When Dr. Johnson was talking, it just made me think about it. Like, they got to stop creating this whole, putting people together because this person is new to the organization and calling it a mentorship. That's not a mentorship. To me, that comes off as you're doing it just because you could say that you have that system in place. But in my opinion, a true effective mentorship would be a program that actually is specifically crafted to grow that individual to the next level and achieve that next position or promotion. Because a lot of these mentorships, a lot of people are not getting anything out of it, really. It's just like, oh, I just learned how to make it through the system, but I didn't really learn how to master the system to get to the next level.
And then even with that, sometimes there's just a paycheck or a stipend involved. So they may or may not even be reaching out to the mentee. They're just collecting a check. Let's be real. Let's be honest. Mm-hmm. And they're not effectively doing anything, because I know at the district level, at some campuses, they do have mentorship for first year teachers and things like that, but they may have an introductory meeting, a holiday meeting where everybody comes, do the white elephant, eat, good, and then leave. But when the person is trying to do lesson plans, when they're trying to have parent contacts implemented, or, get their evaluation form entered in correctly, they're stuck with, catching somebody in the hallway. The mentor is already gone home for the day, or, off the clock. So I'm just, not sure in general if the mentors are always cognizant of the end goal in mind. Sometimes they're just things that serve as a distraction, or just like Dr. Brooks mentioned, this is what we have to have in place. And yes, we do have it. It's no effective measures behind it. And no one's evaluating it to see if it works. Because then the mentee, if they fill out a survey or evaluation, they don't want it to impact them negatively. So they may lie on it anyway, knowing they have never seen that mentor, since the first day of school.
Yeah, so I agree, because my first year when I was teaching secondary, my mentor got a stipend, but my mentor did not mentor me. And it was cross race, same gender. And, I just felt like I was cheated. I still came out successfully, because you want to know why I was successful? Because I saw out those mentoring relationships with individuals that looked exactly like me, and then they helped me. And then, we go back to that whole, the Black woman competitive thing, but once you get to that certain level, then you move on to the next mentor that can help you get to the next level, and and then not come off so competitive. But that's what happened. I had to seek out a relationship with someone that would actually help me, and it happened to be someone same gender, same race, and it was more feasible. It was more feasible. Now the resources weren't there, but it was more feasible for me, and I was able to be successful behind it.
Right. And as I was listening to you ladies, I was reminded of another misconception that two misconceptions. That one, mentorship guarantees advancement. It does not. And that two, in order for you to advance, you have to have mentorship. That's not true either. No. However, I do think mentorship is beneficial, as you stated, Dr. Johnson, when both parties or all individuals are aware of the end goal. I'm reminded of a colleague of mine. He has no desire to be in leadership. He wants to teach his classes, serve the students, serve the community, and ensure that students are holistically supported. His place is in the classroom and in the community. We jokingly ask him and we try to assign him simple leadership roles as far as being a chair of a committee. And he's like, nope, that's not my lane. I don't want to lead. I don't want to advance. I want to stay right where I am. However, he does have a goal of helping support students more and giving them the resources that they need to get through college, to get through life. And so as I was talking to him, I was asking him about his passion projects and, hey, how are things going for you? He's like, you know what, Jerica, I'm having a difficult time. And as I was thinking and listening to him, I was reminded of another individual that could mentor him. And when I mentioned it to him, he was like, great, I love it. But can you please just make sure the person know I am not looking for leadership? I said, of course. And so that just reminds me that it's very important to know what the end goal is for the mentee. That individual may not want to advance. That individual may not want to ascend up the ladder. Mm-hmm. But that individual just may want to grow and grow more in their current state. And the mentor needs to be able to understand that. So ladies, as we close, I want to end with just one more important question and follow-up. And as we just had this rich conversation, why is mentorship important? And what is one piece of practical advice you would give someone seeking a mentor?
Well, I'll go first. I think mentorship is extremely important because it gives you an opportunity to help people make effective decisions as well as reach the ultimate goal. And one piece of practical advice would be to be open-minded. Open-mindedness is really essential to personal as well as professional, but to just know that you have to be open in order to kind of move and grow and progress. So even though you may want to be content or stay in your comfort zone, like Dr. Brooks mentioned, you may have to step outside of your comfort zone and step outside the box. So just to stay open-minded is something that really speaks as a practical piece of advice.
Okay, and for me, mentorship is important because it gives you access to other resources that you might not have if you were just, guiding yourself. And so I think that's absolutely necessary. It opens you up to bigger opportunities and you get to network and things like that. And I'm going to be honest with you. One advice I would give, because Dr. Johnson said, be open-minded. And so I'm going to go the opposite way. And I'm going to say, if you're not open-minded, then have two mentors. Because I have a mentor that is someone that's cross-race, cross-gender. Then I have a mentor that is same race, same gender. And so I think, you just get the best of both worlds and just take it, and then you can make your own decisions from there. You're on mute, Doctor.
I saw it. the life of virtual and remote learning and discussions and conferences. But ladies, thank you all so much for the rich conversation. We truly do hope that something was said that would transcend others and help them as they progress and grow in their professional lives and also their personal lives, and having just more access to others and the differences that we share, but how they can also work for our greater good as we continue this journey called life. We hope you guys enjoyed the discussion, and we're looking forward to feedback. Feel free to reach out to us if you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns. And again, a huge thank you to Doctors Brooks and Johnson for participating in today's panel discussion.
And
Thank you as
Dr.
well,
Nick.
Dr. Nickerson.
Thank you.